Hard to believe, but September is here. Or maybe it's not hard to believe. I mean, days, weeks, months fly by. And again, as I've said in the past, you want it to slow down because you want the World Cup to get here, but you don't want it to get here because it goes by so fast and then you have to wait 4 years. That's the dilemma, right, with the World Cup. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyhow, the friendlies are coming here for the United States. Some big questions to answer. How does Greg Berhalter approach this? So much is going on with a wide collection of American players, many who already have their ticket stamped to Qatar. A few, and I think it's a very, very short list who probably haven't. I think it's 2 guys. Yeah, I think if you have a 26-man roster, I think Greg Berhalter knows 23, 24. He should. I think he wants to get closer to that. He doesn't want to have open endings here. So how do you construct this team that will be playing Japan on September the 23rd and Saudi Arabia on the 27th? That roster will tell you it all. Will it be, by and large, the team that goes to the World Cup? Probably. Maybe a couple guys don't get brought in. There are some loose ends here and there. And how many guys that are battling for those last 2 or 3 spots do you bring in? Do you disrupt the waters, so to speak? There are values to bring in a camp that you've done for 18 months that you want to keep bringing in the same group of players. You want to get that cohesion. So it's not gonna be some wild fringe player. I hate to use fringe player. It's very disrespectful for guys who are on the fence, who it's not gonna be those guys that you think may not get in. It's going to be 23, 24 of the guys that are already in the World Cup and then a few others. And of those few others, do they even play? This is about the World Cup right now. This isn't about putting your roster together. Those decisions probably should have been made. Now, there is the situation with the number 9, which is very compelling. And that, I think, will come through. Positions like the goalkeeper, as who will start, we don't know. But we know the goalkeepers that are going to go. They're not going to bring in someone else. So here today on the Soccer OG, we'll talk about those fringe players. And we'll talk about the situation with Joe Scally. As I talked about John Brooks a couple weeks ago, the Joe Scally conspiracy theory to a lesser degree. What's going on there? Does he get called in? Check out the Soccer OG podcast. I have a new one with Diego Balado, who works for TUDN. Had a great voice there. A man who brings so much color and context to games. You'll enjoy that conversation. Check out all the Soccer OG podcasts where all podcasts are available. And check out the entire library. Like and subscribe us here. We'll also give you my top 5 players from the weekend, which is becoming a much and more difficult list. Sometimes not as difficult. It's hard to determine like 2 through 5 kind of thing. There's usually one good guy who reigns supreme. So it could be a bigger roster here for the September games, maybe 28. November 9th, by the way, the announcement for the World Cup team. So by the end of September 27th, November 9th, you don't have a lot of time. It's going to be pretty compelling. And so much is happening here with regards to the men's national team. So many Americans overseas playing. There are some question marks. John Brooks still without a club. Serginho Dest is not playing at Barcelona. Rules are that they want him out of there. He doesn't want to leave. That's kind of a big deal. Christian Pulisic not playing a lot at Chelsea. All these guys are still going to get called in and play feature roles, but you would like them to have some games under their belt by the time they got there. Zach Steffen disappearing from the Middlesbrough lineup. This kind of stuff, yeah. The goalkeeping situation's a little bit hairy. So you got the 28 guys, and some guys are coming on strong late. Doesn't mean that they get in there. And then Joe Scally is one of them. So let's talk about Joe, because this is very intriguing. There's a debate that goes on social media and the American fandom. And if there's certain things that happen, it almost demands that they get into the roster. So Joe Scally started for Mönchengladbach. He started all 3 Bundesliga games. Amazing. And he started and went the distance against Bayern Munich. Truly remarkable achievement for an American player. How often can you say that? Playing on a game that tied. So many people, from what I understand, feel that alone should get him onto the squad. There was that friendly against Uruguay. He looked out of his depth, but it was just one game. It would be unfair to judge him on that game, yes. I thought Joe Scally probably should have been integrated a little sooner. He certainly earned that as a young player, but he is a young player. And remember, we have the youngest team at the World Cup. And while if you have the youngest team, maybe you're inclined to go even younger, but I mean, there is to a point, right? Nobody's going, let's get younger for this World Cup. I mean, look at Uruguay. Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani. Those guys aren't getting pushed out. They're going to go and play feature roles. It's an old man's game. So while you do bring in some youngsters, and there'll be some teenagers like Yunus Musa, who could be up for running here in this top 5. He had a really great goal for Valencia on Monday, but it was disallowed. You can't have too many of those, especially guys who haven't been in camp. So that's up against James Sands here. Now, starting versus Bayern Munich's one thing, but I am a big believer of performing. And anybody who watched that game, and I stopped and I watched it Monday morning to make sure I saw what I saw. And I'm not taking, I don't want to pick on Joe Scally. I just want us to be realistic about what happens. He gets in, I think he gets called into the squad. I don't think he's going to play these games, very minimal games. But the Serginho Dest situation is of concern. The fullbacks, Anthony Robinson, Serginho Dest would be the starters. Who falls in from there? I think, Sam Vines is a guy who probably put his hand up, but maybe it's too late for him. And that's the way it is. Sorry, timing is everything. Reggie Cannon's certainly going to be there. DeAndre Yedlin's not all of a sudden going to be trimmed off this field for James Sands. But you have to perform as well. And anybody who saw that game cannot tell me that James Sands played well. In fact, you could say he was one of the poorer players on the field. Yes, they got a 1-1 tie. They went at him constantly. There was a goal on his side that didn't count, but he was beaten pretty convincingly on a few times. He turned the ball over a ton. They tried to protect him when he went to the byline, and Sadio Mane or someone came down. Immediately a midfielder doubled up there. Bayern Munich had 33 shots. So that's a reflection off the Mönchengladbach back line. 33 shots is 9 more shots than their previous season total. 33 is insane. 20 shots on target. 19 saves for Jürgen Sommer of Mönchengladbach, a record in the Bundesliga. So the same way you couldn't say a defender Mönchengladbach played well is the same way you can't say that a defender for the US men's national team in the World Cup in 2014 played well against Belgium. You wouldn't say that about any defender there, right? So you can't say that about Mönchengladbach, and certainly not Joe Scally. It was not a good performance. Still playing with Bayern, we won't take away from that. But Joe Scally should get in there. He is versatile. I hope he gets another look. I tweeted a while ago, and this tweet's being used against me. It wasn't a shot at Joe Scally. I said, he is one for 2026, and there's nothing wrong with that. His timing is a little bit off with making this team, and being a young defender, not in his favor. You want some experience because you are already the youngest team at the World Cup. Now you have the striker situation. Could bring in 9, 10, 11 strikers, right? Or forwards, pardon me, not strikers. And you know the usual suspects, Aronson and Pulisic. Tim Weah is another question mark. He's not playing, but he'll get called in. But you're adding to that list. Jesus Ferreira is going to be the number 1 choice at 9. However, Josh Sargent scoring again this weekend. Game-winning goal for Norwich. And he is talent-wise probably the best number 9 we have. If he's scoring goals, there's no reason not to bring him in, even though he's up against it, hasn't been a regular, has not been called in on these last few call-ups, and he shouldn't have been. He's been injured. He's been non-performing. He's been playing out of position. So no, but you've got to bring him in now. So the question is, the pecking order of forwards, and the names that are out there, Sargent, Pefok, Ferreira, Haji Wright, Brandon Vasquez. Everyone wants Brandon Vasquez. I love Brandon Vasquez. You bring him in maybe because you want to make sure he doesn't go to Mexico. Man, he's a really intriguing prospect. Really intriguing prospect. But he's never been brought in. I don't see how you bring a guy in September unless he is exemplary, unless some guy you feel is broken through and was going to start for you because of a situation. There's still a pecking order. And I still put Ferreira right, although I think Sargent's on his heels. Still could be the starter for the Wales game. If he keeps going on like this, Norwich are up into 4th in the championship. And then you have Haji Wright and Pefok. I don't know how that orders. Haji Wright scored 2 more goals, although it was in a bad defeat to Gaziantep when he was playing with Antalyaspor. Still scoring goals, looks good. And he was brought in last time around. Jordan Pefok was not doing very well for Union Berlin. So both of those guys get in. I don't see why you can bring in Brandon Vasquez. You can't play them all. So Jordan Mars is the other one. Maybe his number is kind of pushed on the wrong side of the fence because these guys have been doing so well. I think Sargent has to get in there. I think Haji Wright gets in there. I don't think Vasquez does. It's going to be a tough situation. By the way, all this reports of Greg Berhalter sending himself out to see teams and scouts. Apparently for Joe Scally, sending out one of the representatives. I think he fills the number, but it's not going to be in time. But let's be real about him. And let's not mount pressure on him because we really are. It wasn't a good performance. The midfield is pretty well set. Maybe another body gets put in there, but I think that same core of guys, Musa, McKennie, and Adams, tremendous at Leeds. You feel better about that midfield with Kellen Acosta, Luca de la Torre. Luca de la Torre is not playing, but he still put the work in to get in there. And then a couple more guys filling that out. Defensively, Zimmerman, Long, Chris Richards is healthy. That's another and playing, at least coming into games for Crystal Palace. So the center back grouping is also solid. It's also solid. And then you have James Sands, who could be that other surprise guy who gets in there, playing for Rangers, versatile defender. I think you got to bring him in too. And he has a really good shot at making it because of that versatility. Maybe that's a guy who can play at fullback. Maybe that's a guy who can play at the back of the midfield. But Rangers is going to the Champions League. The Celtic players are going to the Champions League. Cameron Carter-Vickers he's just so good. He's making his passes for Celtic. Now, the SPL is not a top-tier league. But those are the guys that make it in. I feel good about it. I feel good about defensively. We've got to work out the forwards. And let's take it on. See how it goes. But we'll keep watching every week to see who performs. As to who did perform, time now for the top 5 players of the weekend. I mentioned a lot of names that didn't make it. That all played kind of... By the way, Yunus Musa's goal was incredible, but it was disallowed. So I can't put him in there. Valencia lost. Results matter to make the top 5. So number 5, I'm going to put Joe Scally. Playing against Bayern Munich is big enough. Despite it being a messy game, he still makes the list. I think that is to be celebrated. And they got the result. So Joe Scally, number 5 on this week's list. Tim Ream, I pop him in here. Look, we talk about the Leeds guy, but the Fulham story may be even better. Tim Ream, 70 minutes into the game against Arsenal, was probably my number 1 on this list. But the last 20 minutes he cracked, was involved on the go-ahead goal. I think could have done a lot better. So Tim Ream falls down in the pecking order, but still makes the top 5. Still makes the top 5 because he's a starting center back. This guy should be the model for every young center back. Every young center back goes, I want to be with Tim Ream, starting in the Premier League for a London club. That's as sexy as it gets. So he's there at 4. Josh Sargent, he gets in at number 3. Game-winning goal for Norwich. It's in the championship, so again, the standard is not super high compared to what guys like Ream or Musa or Richards are doing. But it's an important goal as they get up to 4th place. So Josh Sargent makes the list here at number 3. He was top 5 last week, so that's great. I know Greg Berhalter looks at my top 5s to see who to bring in. So there's another development. Number 2, Cameron Carter-Vickers. Really impressed what he did. Now, Celtic played St. Johnstone, and they scored 9 goals. They played Dundee United. They didn't play St. Johnstone. They played Dundee United, who had Ian Hark's fellow American. 9-zip CCV, 90 minutes, really good numbers across the board. Next week, the Old Firm is played, Celtic Rangers. What a celebration that's going to be for Americans. We could have 4 or 3 Americans in view in this massive game. By the way, Gio Reyna's another question mark. Did I mention him? Another question mark. He's going to come in. Dortmund are not playing him all the time. I got to say, as I told you a while ago when I said don't even worry about the World Cup for Gio Reyna, we're getting up against it, and the injury concerns have not subsided. They are protecting him, and there's a reason for that. Load management or whatever. Gio Reyna doesn't travel with the team. Yeesh. Not great. So I don't think you just pencil in Reyna to the World Cup roster. There's a few hurdles that has to be cleared. Performance, yes, but will he be ready? Because this has been going on for a year or longer, and he's still not out of the woods. So where was I? Number 2, Cameron Carter-Vickers. We look forward to the Old Firm over the weekend. And number 1, Anthony Robinson. Had Bukayo Saka in his back pocket. As comforting a performance of U.S. International we have seen in this young European season, he just did the job. And if he does that for the U.S., it could be good. Now, many of you might say, does Tim Ream get into the picture? I don't think so. I love the fact that he and Anthony Robinson play together because as a partnership, that familiarity could provide a moment. It seems counter to what Greg Berhalter has been doing. But Anthony Robinson was our best over the weekend. Fantastic performance. Sam Stokes, thanks for the shirt. I absolutely love it. It looks great on camera. The red contrasts nicely with my backdrop here. For Yank Report, who does an amazing job as well. You can follow him as well. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. We'll be back to break it down. We're here fighting the good fight. We're not picking favorites. We advocate for everyone. We're not trying to push anyone down. I'm not an MLS fanboy. I cover everything and I watch everything. So it's just my perspective. It's one man's perspective. Take a few of them. We'll talk to you soon.